That's dope.
Sure.
I'm trying to get into to reading a lot more. I see the value in reading. There's a
Hmm.
book that I've started. It's called, where's that joint at?
Hmm.
It's called Atomic Habits. Atomic
Oh
Habits? Have
yeah,
you heard of that
yeah.
book?
Atomic Habits, by James. Yeah,
James Clear. Yeah. So
great book.
I've only read like the first what 15 pages, bro.
Hmm.
Okay, the first 39 pages.
Right,
I'm trying to be more disciplined and like reading every day. But
right.
shout out to you for having that, collection, man. It's very inspiring. So
I mean, it's. I mean, that's a little bit of it, but like, it's. I'm one of those people to where like I read a book, even though it's like smart people read books like more than like once, allegedly and apparently. But like, I'll
mm,
read a book once, and then I'll just like give it away. So like, I'll send that
mm.
book. I'll send one of these books to you if you want me to. It don't really matter to me.
Hey
But
man, it doesn't either way. It's either you can recommend it and I can like also look it up and see
mhm.
because Audible is where it's at. When I'm
Oh
driving,
yeah,
I
for
like to
sure,
listen. So that might just be the wave as well. So either way,
for
I
sure.
appreciate
But
the gesture though.
physical too, though. Like for like memory as well. Like work. So what I tell people a lot
Mm,
too is to like my memory used to be like as sharp as a whip, but like
mm,
my memory, like the older you get, you start to forget like, oh, like who was like the cinematographer for this film? And then I'm like, I
yeah,
never used to do that. Like I never used to do that. People used to say, all right, like what's the cinematographer like,
yeah.
Badlands or something. And then I used to say like off the bat, but like now it's just like because I don't write it down, it's like, oh, I gotta
Mm,
like go like on Google
yeah.
and
On
IMDb,
Google.
and I'm like,
Yeah,
man, I'm tripping right now. So yeah,
yeah.
writing stuff down and like physical books like are important. But I do Audible as well. Like I'll just be writing, what I'm saying, in the
Right.
whip for like 6 hours or whatever like that if I'm traveling or whatever. And
Yeah,
then like that's half a book right there, or like a full good book.
that's true.
So nah. But
That's
yeah,
true.
nah,
I mean,
I need to give like the physicals to my brothers. You feel me? Like
nah, that's real,
here's
bro.
this, here's the unedited, what I'm saying, version of this book before they start like editing versions, and then
You
they
feel like
start
they
just
do that a
taking
lot?
it. Man, what?
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. I thought they were reading verbatim.
Nah. They'll take like a lot of like chapters out, or like let's just say if it's dealing with like white supremacy or like history revisionist type shit. You feel me?
Oh, got
They'll
you.
take
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
out and then be like, I remember reading that book from like J.A. Rogers. Like, this is how
Mm,
this went versus like who wrote this book? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, okay. And then
mm,
you see like who they're like tied into and stuff like that. It's just like, oh,
right.
okay. They want to take this stuff out of the books. You feel
Yeah,
me?
yeah. That
So
makes
that's
sense.
why I like to give people physicals. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of politics, bro. Even in like the booking industry, you know what I'm saying? When it comes to
Right.
like, as we see, they're trying to even like eliminate some of that stuff in the education. I believe it's in Florida. I think it's already been
Mm-hmm.
passed.
Mm-hmm.
How they trying to like just ban certain books. So I mean, I feel like it's not really surprising. It's unfortunate when you do hear that it's happening, especially like in schools. But I didn't really expect it to happen. Like you just ordering a book and you're not even knowing that you're not getting the real book itself because they're like
Right.
omitting information that was
Right.
originally there. So that's very interesting. But yeah, I think raw books will always be like undefeated for sure.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For
Yeah,
sure. For
for
sure.
sure.
Man, I like that. I like that beanie, man. Where you get that beanie from?
Oh, thanks. It's a company called oh man, I forgot. But I can send it to you later. But it's basically I think the founder is either Nigerian or Ghanaian. I'm Nigerian.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw it, I was just like, yeah, I gotta have that drink. So but I can link you later once I find them. It's in my email somewhere.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Of
Yeah, I
course,
always
of
like to
course.
go good digs and good finds, man. But I
No, for sure.
appreciate you on this podcast, man.
For sure.
Samson. So I might say like a few things that might be like, how this dude know this? You know what I'm saying? How this
Hmm.
dude know this information or whatever. But I do know you were
Oh
Nigerian
man.
American. You know
Uh-huh.
what I'm saying?
This man about to pull
Started off
the Narwhal army.
started off as a photographer, you know what I'm saying? In
Very true.
Greenblatt, Maryland, correct?
Greenbelt. Yep.
Greenbelt, Maryland, correct, correct. So
Hmm.
how'd you start off as a photographer? How was that?
So it's funny that you asked this question. So this was back in like 2010. I
Mm-hmm.
was dating a girl at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and she was taking a photography class. And I was in my freshman year of college. She was a year younger than me, so she was like in her senior year of high school. and she was taking a photography class. And prior to that, like I had no experience with like DSLRs or cameras. It's not like my dad randomly have CAD cameras in his house. Like some people have stories of like their parents having cameras around the house and they picked up a camera at like 4 years old. That was not my story. I wish it was though. So basically, I was dating her, and when we would hang out, like she would bring the camera around. And I remember like, she brought it and I was like, yo, like, can I check it out? And I picked up the camera, looked at it, tried to take a few pictures. Obviously, my settings were not correct because I didn't know anything. And I was just like, it's cool, but it's not really my thing. So I give it back to her. So then we hung out like another time, and then she had the camera again. And I'm just like, you know what? Like, let me actually try and take my time and like learn this thing. So I asked her a few questions, asked her if she could teach me. And, she showed me around the camera and, got my settings right. I took the photo and I was just like, yo, this is crazy. Like there was just something like very refreshing, because at that time I didn't really have any hobbies outside of just like freestyling. So that was my hobby before photography. I would like download beats on YouTube, and then I would like record them like on a sound recorder on my laptop, and I would just like record freestyles, and that was my hobby. So like I think something like this was like, yo, this is new. I get to still be creative. I get to still express myself, and I don't necessarily need people to do this thing. I can just do this at my own will at any time. So then it was like, okay, cool. I like this thing. Like, what's the next step? Obviously, you need a camera. So I'm like doing research on cameras, and there's like obviously tons and tons of cameras, bro. I'm just like getting overwhelmed. I'm just like, I don't know why this is cheaper than this one. What makes this one better? So I just decided to like just buy the same exact camera that, my girlfriend at the time that she had, since I was already like familiar with it. And then from there, it was just like trying to figure out like what type of photographer I wanted to be. And again, this is all around like 2010, 2011, my freshman year of college. Just trying to figure out like what I want to do, what I even want to study in school, So me choosing to pick up a camera around that time is actually how I ended up choosing my major when I transferred to University of Maryland, College Park. I was an art major. But that's kind of like, that's just like I guess like the shorter version of how I got into it. It was basically an old friend. I mean, she's still my friend today, still really close, but I always like pay homage to her for like, just introducing me to a tool that I didn't know would have like such, so much of an impact on my life today, so.
So when you were freestyling, so it was like what, Sambition, ambition, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that.
It was definitely wow. So it was definitely Sambition. That was like my stage name. That was also like my photography name, Sambition Photos.
Okay.
And that was around the time like Wale came out with an album called Ambition. So this is like back in like Fire. So this is back like early Twitter days, where I would like include an S in front of like words that started with like the two letters A and M. So or just like so I would do like San Francisco or obviously Sambition. I was just like play around with like different words. And then Sambition, I was like, yo, I actually like really like the sound of that. Like, I think it's really dope. And then that just became like my name for like a while. Like people would see me in person, they would actually like call me that. I have a friend who still calls me that till this day, Sambition. So it's crazy, bro. Yeah, bro. Yeah, Sambition. That was definitely like my stage name, if you will.
So you say like Twitter, Tumblr, Blogspot era. So you probably were like, well, like street etiquette, you know what I'm saying? Because you fly.
Yeah.
Like street etiquette, like Rogue Walker, you know what I'm saying? Art comes first type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I was huge, definitely huge. I mean, they definitely paved the way. Definitely in the Tumblr space, but also just like what it looks like to obviously take photos and build a community around that, around like photography and fashion. And fashion, I definitely have a passion for fashion. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the phrase passion for fashion. But I definitely have a passion for that. So mixing, fashion with photography was just like the best of both worlds, and actually seeing like men that look like me, who dress like me, or like men I aspire to like dress like. I felt like that was really dope. And it wasn't something that, was common then, definitely like during like the blogging time, like where blogging was like very, very heavy. So yeah, street etiquette and art comes first were like definitely like people I looked up to heavy growing up during that time.
I think it's interesting too, like seeing somebody like Joshua Kizzy, Ghanaian director, and like coming from that era. And I'm like, wow, like I remember you know what I'm saying, you and your crew, like a bunch of people like during the early Tumblr days, early Blogspot days, because I was like a huge like Charles Hamilton fan. So like,
Dope.
of course, like listening
Yeah.
to Charles Hamilton, listening to like bands like, you know, Hawk House and stuff like that. And
Hawk
like, yo,
House.
like
Yeah.
this is like, oh, okay, like these dudes, like, I like their style, you know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
to see the progression now, it's like, yo, like he's really like was in the mud, like doing it and a true
For
creator, you
sure.
know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Nah, people like that is always inspiring, especially like when you find someone that you look up to and you're actively like, following their journey and to kind of like see how their life is like panning out. It's just, again, it's inspiring and it's also encouraging to you if that's something that you aspire to do. Cause it's almost like, okay, like obviously everyone's life is going to be different. The outcomes are always going to be different. So it's never expecting your outcome to be exactly like someone else's, but it's almost at the same time, it's just like, okay, like I see what hard work, like where it takes you, I see where
Right.
consistency, where that takes you. So, and that can be in whatever craft you decide to do, but it just goes to show like when you're consistent in something and you're passionate about something and you can somehow like create a community around it, like it's bound to be something that thrives and that's successful, especially like when your heart's in the right place and you're very integral about like the stuff that you're trying to do. Like it's almost like it's a no-brainer to like why that thing or that person became successful.
Right. In your early days of photography, like were you discouraged a lot, or was it like one of those things to where it was like a learning curve that you just had to get over?
It was both. I was definitely discouraged, mainly because like a lot of my peers at the time, they weren't into photography. So I didn't really have any friends to like share that deep passion with. And like granted, like my girlfriend at the time, she was taking the class, but it wasn't like she was extremely passionate about it. It was more so just like it was just a hobby. She like took photos when she went out, whatever the case may be. But
Right.
also me being a Nigerian-American, like, there's a lot of us that, our parents tell us, my parents weren't like this, but there's a lot of Nigerian parents or like just foreign parents in general, where you're going to school, like they want to make sure that their investment is something that's, they're going to reap the rewards, right? So like if I'm paying for school, if I sacrifice coming to this country and I'm sending you off like to school, like, I want to make sure like you're studying something that's profitable. You're studying something that's going to reap, you know what I'm saying? So because I chose to do art, like there were times where people would tell me to change my major. Like a guy came up to me in the library one day, was like, bro, like if you want to be able to feed your family, you got to like change your major. And I think he was doing like computer science or computer engineering or something like that. And that still sticks with me today. Cause in that moment I had a choice of, I'm gonna like listen to what this guy says and possibly be miserable and do this thing I don't want to do and that I may not even be good at, or I'm gonna continue to bet on myself, and trust God. Like this is what I felt like, he's placed this passion in my heart for some weird reason. I'm just gonna stick with this and then see like how far it takes me. And that was the decision that I made in that moment. So there's many times people would ask me what my major is. I would tell them, I'm gonna be an art director or creative director. And at the time, I didn't even know what that meant, but I knew it was something that sounded like significant enough where people would like somewhat like respect that, like, oh, okay, art director, cool, like creative director. But I was discouraged a lot, bro. You know what I'm saying? I was discouraged a lot because again, there was only a few people that I saw like doing anything art related full time and actually being able to like feed their family and not being like a starving artist and not struggle, especially being Nigerian or just being African. Like it wasn't like a person I can call like, yeah, how did you navigate this? Or like, how did you get through this? It's almost like I felt alone in a sense when it came to like, I don't really know what the future holds because I don't really know anyone personally that's doing this. And that's why like someone like a Joshua Kissy, him being Ghanaian, is like, okay, cool. Like, again, there are people who are doing it, who are paving the way and showing us like what's possible, so. Yeah,
That's
man.
dope. Yeah, that's dope. Yeah, the struggle is beautiful in a sense of like, you know, it's like was he like a random dude or was he just like your homie that was like, yo, you need to change your major?
He wasn't a homie, but he was also African, but he was just someone
Okay.
that I knew from like, church, like growing up, but we weren't
Okay,
like best
okay.
friends or anything like that. But we
Right.
just knew each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been like, yo, why are you talking? We're in a library.
Right. Nah, I mean, it was one of those like, bro, not legit, but it was one of those like, you know what, like he low key might be right. It was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, damn,
Oh
like
yeah.
it's like I do want to be able to feed my family. Like I do want to be able to do certain things and move a certain type of way. And because
Right.
I didn't have an example, it was just like, yo, maybe he's right. Like maybe I should just
Right.
go the safer route and just study this field where I know I can make like a decent salary once I graduate. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it was a hard decision, bro. But yeah, I'm glad I decided to like trust the process.
Man, that's great, man. Let's go back to a young Samson. You know what I'm saying? Growing up, watching Toy Story, the first one. You know what I'm saying? Like, was that the first film that you was like, wow, like I really want to do this? Like, this
Nah,
is
bro.
really
I had nothing like that growing up. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't have any like, oh, I saw this film or nothing. You know what I'm saying? Because again, like I didn't know I wanted to do this until college. I graduated college 2015 and I basically started photography. I started photography 4 years before then. So it wasn't like I was doing it for a long time or I was like, again, inspired at a very young age. It was very random. So to answer your question, I wish I had like a movie that I can say, yeah, I saw the movie and I saw the way the camera was moving. I was just like, I want to do this for a living. I want to be like that guy. I want to be like this woman. But it's just like, nah, bro. I didn't have any like revelations like that, you know. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you like fully like developed in it, man. Because like I said, your the way you like shoot is just very like it's very like fluid, like the fluidity in it. And I'm about to ask you like later about like your post process because I feel like a lot of like directors and DPs they don't get asked about like the post work, which I feel like is probably like the most important. But yeah, no, it's just like it's just very like fluid. You know what I'm saying? Like, did you play sport? You played sports growing up, or
I played basketball. I wasn't necessarily an athlete. I wasn't an athlete growing up, but I played basketball. It's funny, bro. I actually thought that I was going to go to the league, but it's like every young kid. I mean, bro, like I feel like every young kid at some point that was playing like either arranged like basketball or just whatever. We thought that maybe there's a possibility
the Michael Jordan.
I could be the next Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Scottie Pippen or whatever. But nah, bro. Like I tried out for high school basketball freshman year. I did not make it past the first round of tryouts, bro. So from that moment on, I was just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think basketball is it. I love to play basketball like just leisurely, you know what I'm saying? Playing with the homies, being competitive, all that. But like in terms of like an actual career, like it's funny, like an adult told me because he asked all of us, he's like, hey, what do you guys want to be when you grow up? And I was like, yo, I want to be in the NBA. He was like, you might want to reconsider something else. I was like, dang. I'm like, even if you felt like that, like you gonna tell a kid out, bro,
he's like,
probably nah. He's like, nah, like reconsider. I think I was like 12 or something. Like, hoop dreams were still very much present.
Oh, for sure.
And my man said, you might want to, I'm like, damn, like that just shattered all the confidence that I had. So for all the parents and adults who may be watching this, even if you know what I'm saying, if you see a kid and they may not be good at it, at least find a better way to like communicate, like, hey man, I see you doing this. I see you doing this, but just straight up telling them, yeah, nah, I don't really see that for you. It was a little disappointing, but it was real. It was the truth, but I guess sometimes you're too young to face the truth, so
it's half and half too, because like, a young Michael Jordan was told that, and it's just like, all right, like you're not good enough to be on the team. Michael Jordan was like, I'm gonna be the greatest basketball player of all time. What I'm saying?
That's real.
I forget what you talk about. So it's just like all about mindset. You know what I'm saying?
That's true too. Yeah, man. It depends on the type of person you are. Yeah,
for sure. But like also like just like you said, I'm agreeing with you. Do not like just discourage kids.
Yeah, bro.
Because you never know. You know what I'm saying? Like you look at these kid gamers now, like Aiden Ross or like Kai or like Actual Speed or whatever. And these kids are killing. I remember my mom would be like, stop playing them games and go outside.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's real. I mean, I get it because, bro, like our parents' generation, like obviously the amount of opportunities that we have just in the tech space or just online is nothing compared to like the option that they had. So their view of the world when it comes to this is like very narrow. So, I mean, I understand, but it's just like, that's why like eventually when we start having kids, it's just like when they say, hey, dad, I want to be like a YouTuber, or hey mom, like I want to be like a TikToker or whatever social media platform is popular around that time. Like it's not to discourage it because again, there are people who are making millions of dollars off of this stuff, you know what I'm saying? Versus like people who actually have a degree and they're not making as much, so like there's this thing going around like, maybe the next generation, a lot of people are not going to be going to college. Like people are concerned
Right.
about that because again,
Mm-hmm.
like once you realize the amount your earning potential, once you
Right.
realize like what that can be in a non like traditional way of going to school, it's just like, yo, like why am I going to go into debt? Cause not everyone can't get full ride scholarships.
Right.
Everyone, you know what I'm saying, is not trying to take out loans. So it's just like if I have to now pay how much a year for this education when I can just YouTube University, that's where a lot of us learn now,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
till this day. And it's just like, and it's, you can grow alongside with YouTube because as you get older, you're going to want to learn more things, whether that's like your finances, taxes, or whether that's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, tips on being a parent. Like YouTube is always
Mm-hmm.
going to be there to grow alongside with you in the information that it offers. So it's just like, it's just, I don't know, bro. Like to me, it makes sense to like why less people want to go to, or why more people are saying that they're not going to go to college. But you know, that's just it's 2023. You know what I'm saying? So that's just how the world looks like right now. And I feel like it only makes sense to go with the times.
Mm-hmm. Speak about, you said ingenuity. That was like the word that I'm like getting from that. Like, you know, you're Nigerian American. I have friends that are Nigerian, also Nigerian American, Ghanaian friends, like friends all across the diaspora, but specifically like on the continent of Africa or coming from the continent of Africa. Like, speak about that, like just like the work ethic, like when it comes within the film industry, about like you being Nigerian American, you feel like you might have like a chip on your shoulder, but it's just like you black. You know what I'm saying? It's just like I'm a black.
Yeah, that's
I'm
real.
like I'm from, you know what I'm saying? My folks from Nigeria had me in America, but like my
Yeah.
roots are still like both America and Nigeria slash like Africa as well. So
Yeah, nah, that's a great question. I think mainly for me, like my parents really showed me what hustling looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like my dad will always tell me not to say something is hard. He would say it's
right.
challenging. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just little things like that that's just like, oh, it still sticks with me till today. And I think because like my parents weren't born here, they obviously had to like grind. They had to figure out like the system, how the system works, while also raising 3 children. You know what I'm saying? Like, so imagine raising someone in a country you're not fully aware of, and then also like having to like play the game in this new system that you're in, trying to figure out like how
Right.
to get your green card, or how to work, you know what I'm saying, without a work permit. Like, bro, like there's a lot of things that are set up to make the lives of immigrants. So maybe it's a little easier now, but and to a certain degree, it's still not easy. But it's just like there are a lot of things set up to make it hard for you to thrive in this country as an immigrant. So my parents had to like work certain jobs that it's not ideal. You know what I'm saying? Had to work at certain hours of the day that's not ideal. And me just growing up, I'm not necessarily thinking about it in that way. I'm just thinking, okay, you're my parents. You're supposed to do this because that's
Right.
what parents do. I'm not like growing up thinking, oh man, like my parents, man, they're grinding. Nah, like I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking that now because
Right.
I have, the retrospect to think back, like, oh man, as an adult now, being 30 is just like, oh snap, like they were still trying to figure things out, being new parents, being new citizens, or like being new just residents of a country, so like a lot of that kind of just showed me that yeah, life is going to throw you some curveballs. I mean, it's going to be hard times, but like not necessarily using that to stop you from like pursuing the things that you want to do, or just getting things done for the sake of your family or the people that you have to show up for. So that kind of like, it kind of made me realize like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Like grind culture is real, you know what I'm saying?
It
Like,
is.
and granted, we don't always want to grind the rest of our lives. That's
Mhm.
not something that, you want to consistently live in a state of just grinding, but it really just shows you like sometimes it's necessary. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you have to. And then on top of that, being like black, like obviously a lot of opportunities are not awarded to us compared to like, white counterparts. So that's also like a thing you have to recognize being in this country when you're thinking about opportunities or being in certain rooms. It's just like, it's frustrating. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's discouraging because even when I'm like on social media and I'm like looking at BTS of like certain sets, I'm just like, I'm scoping out, like trying to see if there's like
Right.
any black people in the background.
Same.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like
Right.
always like predominantly like a white crew. And like my
A
wife and I, we have
reverse chocolate chip cookie. You know
a
what I'm
reverse chocolate. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And you may see that one token black person
saying?
and
Right.
they're like, maybe a PA. They're like not
Right.
necessarily like, and there's no shade to being a PA, but A lot of the time, like in the above the line roles that you may see, like you want to see more Black people in those positions. You know what I'm saying? Because it just shows a certain level of trust that the client may have or the production company may have when they employ people of color. It goes back to like the Super Bowl thing, how there was only like two directors. I think it was two. There was only like two directors out of.
It was Rodney Lucas, the homie, and who else was it? It was
Was it
somebody else as
Calmatic?
well. Yes.
Okay. So, bro, and there was a lot of, obviously there's a lot of ads that we saw, you know, that day. So again, it's just like you aspire to be in an industry and wear certain hats in the industry that doesn't necessarily like award certain opportunities or a lot of opportunities to people that look like you. So then it's just like you ask yourself like, yo, why am I working so hard to like get to a level where, let's say I get through level 5, but I'm really trying to get to level 9. And there's like gatekeepers that are, you know what I'm saying? They don't look like me at all those 4 other doors or whatever, or 3 other doors. It's just like, it's discouraging, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's like, you always remember like as an artist that you don't want to ask for permission to create, you know what I'm saying? So that's like the importance of like doing passion projects, or the importance of, you know, sometimes raising your own funding to create films to tell certain stories that are not necessarily like appreciated in Hollywood. You know, in Hollywood, you always see like a lot of stories taking place in LA and California. Like you don't really see many stories taking place in DC or even like in Atlanta or even like
Maryland,
Maryland,
Arkansas,
PG County,
Memphis.
Arkansas, like just other states that offer. Shout out to Hustle and Flow. That was dope. You know, shout out to Memphis. But it's just like, you know what I'm saying? Like things like, and on top of that, it was a black movie. But like,
you know what's funny? It's so funny you say that, because like I always talk about like the sweatiness of that film.
Bro,
like I've never seen a film that sweaty before, like in my life. In my life,
it was so well done.
It was well done.
It was so well done. It was so well done. And again, like we just need more opportunities like that, because that was really like showcasing the like the culture of music. And then I think 3 6 Mafia was a part. They actually, I think, wrote most of the tracks that he was, you know, rhyming in that joint. So, but anyway, bro, like it just, again, like I just have like thoughts every now and then of like just intention, you know what I'm saying? Like why you are doing what you're doing, the importance of what you're doing, like, you know, making sure that what you're doing is for you ultimately as an artist. It's not for your followers. It's not for, you know, people who you may inspire, which is cool. Like, that's a cool, like whatever you do create inspires people. That's cool. But like at the end of the day, I feel like as an artist, it's like we're doing it for us first, because there's a certain way. That's how we express ourselves. You know, that's literally how we communicate. Sometimes like people don't necessarily know how to communicate what they're trying to say with words. So they, you know, they do it in their art, they do it in their painting, their song, they do it in a film, whatever the case may be. And I think it's like, it's important to always remember like why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, we're on the same. And I noticed like with like brothers such as yourself and like having conversations with like other people like in and across the diaspora, that's like filmmakers, directors, DPs, cinematographers, and like just art directors, anybody, is that they have like the same mindset of like the gatekeeping, like trying to break past that like glass ceiling. You know what I'm saying? So if it's like having a film company like you and I both have, you know, you started a film company with your wife and partner, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, all right, we just gonna be subcontracted out from these like big companies and stuff, versus like going to a Universal Pictures and saying like, all right, I got this blackety black script and I'm gonna be the director, and I only got like maybe like 2-3 shorts, a couple commercials and something else. So like here, can you give me like $2 million? And they're like, scram. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, it's real.
Get away from me.
Exactly. It makes sense. I mean, because obviously they want to see you have like a certain portfolio, or they want to see like who you're connected to be able to give you, excuse me, to be able to give you like certain opportunities. Because again, like the film industry, bro, like is a business too. Like you got to remember that like all these films that you see that make it to the theater and stuff like that, there's a lot of like intention and marketing and money that's put behind it, because they're expecting to get a lot of that money back. It's an investment, you know what I'm saying? So like, I understand people want to see the ROI, but it's just frustrating because a lot of us are not in it for the business. You know what I'm saying? Like we're in it because we want to tell stories that don't exist, or we want to tell stories that are very significant to the times that we are in. That's not necessarily being shown in media today. So yeah, man, it's a lot. And you gotta just ask yourself, like, are you okay with going the Hollywood route and jumping through the hoops that you have to jump through in Hollywood? Or are you more so like, okay, maybe more independent, maybe like a more A24? And it's just like, I'm gonna make these films. They may not necessarily be seen by as many people as like a Hollywood film, you know what I'm saying? But I'm okay with that because I don't want to have to sacrifice my art or like my script or my story for the sake of, this producer's asking, or this executive producer says it needs to include this person. Like there was a story for Coming to America too. Like Eddie Murphy went to Paramount and he was like, yo, I'm trying to do Coming to America too. And he shared this. There's an interview. He shared this and he was like, it was just like, yeah, cool. Like, but you have to feature like a white person has to be in it. And he was confused. He's like, yo, like what? So they were like, yeah, and in order for us to give you funding, we need a white person in this film. And that's why when you watch the movie, there's the original like white character from the McDowells. You see him in there for like, I think he only had like one scene. Yeah, bro. I think he only had like one scene. But they needed that. They needed to see that for them to give. And this is an Eddie Murphy. So it's just like, bro, if this can happen to Eddie Murphy
at the time. He was scorching at the time. Man, what?
If this can happen to Eddie Murphy, then it's just like, my G. This where's the hope? This is Eddie Murphy. You guys years in the game. You know what I'm saying? This guy's a legend. But at the end of the day, it just goes to show, like, the people who hold the power ultimately, you know what I'm saying? They're not the people that be looking like us. So it can be discouraging, but it's just like, obviously, if we were to think about life and how the system is set up, it's like that in a lot of different cases. Like that, you can't just sit down and like just cry and complain about it. Like, you got to still move and figure out ways to, you know what I'm saying? Like, still make things work with a system that is basically set up against you in a way. So it's tough, but there's ways around it. It's just, it may take you longer and it may cost you a lot more money. So
yeah. And you recently just did a beautiful short. You were a cinematographer for Jamar.
Yes, sir.
How was that? How was that process?
It was great. It's funny. He reached out early, I think like December. And he's like, hey man, like I got this short that I've been trying to produce for a while. Like, let me know if you're interested. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, for sure. Send me the script. I read it. I loved it. It's funny because at first it was supposed to be a spec ad for Indeed.com. So that was the original idea. So it's just like, okay, it's just for Indeed.com, just looking for a job, But then it just turned to like, as we were shooting and as we were like doing the pre-production, he was like, you know what? Like, I think I actually just want to make this live on its own as like a short, and not like obviously a spec ad. And I was like, yo, I respect that. But the process was amazing. Like, just being able to like hop on the different Zoom calls, see live, like people auditioning on these different calls, and being able to like choose. Obviously, it's ultimately his decision on who he wanted to cast, but like he involved me in a lot of the pre-pro, which I really appreciated because, some people, a lot of directors, they don't have to do that. You really, as a DP, it's not really your role to be out here like, yeah, I want to like choose this person. You know what I'm saying? It's more so, obviously the director. So the fact that he included me on that process, I really appreciated it. But it was an amazing process. Like, again, just being able to view everyone's audition tape and pick and choose who we thought was best. Now, eventually, once we actually chose who we thought was the best for the part, like going into rehearsals and going through the blocking, it was great, man. It was such a great experience because it was a great way to start the year because I think we shot it January 2nd or January 3rd. I think it was one of those days. Nice. But yeah, so literally starting the year off in that capacity, it felt amazing because I'm trying to get more into like doing narrative work. And I told him that. So the fact that opportunity, came across the table, I was like, you know what, like I have to do this. Like, and granted, the script was good as well. But I was just like, yo, I have to do this because again, it's Black love, man. You know what I'm saying? Like celebrating Black love. And I'm a sucker for love stories. I love shooting anything that's like involving love or like telling the story of love. I think that's why like Barry Jenkins, like if Bill Street Could Talk, is like one of my favorite movies. Because I remember like being in the theater and just hearing the score alone. And my first passion is music. So before a film, music is my first love. My dad was a musician, so obviously it's just in my blood. My siblings, we all play instruments growing up. So it's just in our blood. So like for me, when I remember being in the theater and hearing the score for If Bill She Could Talk, and I was just like, bruh, like that John was literally tugging. It just shows like music is its own character in film. You know what I'm saying? Like it can dictate how you feel. And some people like that, some people don't like that. But I think ultimately it plays a role in itself. You know what I'm saying? So I think for me, the fact that it was a story on Black love was like a no-brainer. And I think it came out excellently. You know what I'm saying? I feel like shout out to the crew that was a part of that. And it was just a time for us to just come together as just friends to like create something that we're all proud of. You know, it wasn't about the money. No, like we all volunteered our time and our resources to create this thing that was like something that was like bigger than us. You know what I'm saying? So it was a great opportunity. It was cool. It was a great experience.
So one, just writing stuff down here. You referencing that film, Barry Jenkins, BJ, amazing film. I really love that film. But it's funny that you referenced that because you're one of like the rare DP directors that gets Black faces right in the like pushing. Then that's very important because a lot of like white directors pull back when it comes to like Black faces.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, we don't have to talk about, you know,
for sure
the symbolism when it comes to that or whatever like that. But
100%.
Your push in as a cinematographer and a like director is very key, like and vital and stuff like that. And then two, name a time on set, because you were talking about, you know, you're trying to get in more narrative work. And you know, you do a bunch of like commercial work and branded content as well. Like name a time on set to where it was like a struggle and you had to like get over that.
Man, I can't say the time because I don't know who's gonna watch this, but gotta protect yourself.
Names, you know what I'm saying? Right?
No names,
for sure, no names.
But I'm not even gonna like. I'm not even gonna exactly. I'm not even gonna say like a particular shoot, but I think often it's just always dealing with time. You know what I'm saying? Like, and always deciding like what's the priority when it comes to like what you're shooting. Because there are times where, and a lot of the time, like my wife would play like the first AD on a lot of our sets as well as a producer. And she'll tell me like, hey, we actually don't have time for this, or hey, like we got to move on after this shot. And, you know, obviously as a creative, sometimes that can be very hard to hear because you have ideas in your head and you want them to, you know, live on screen, you know, but sometimes you got to understand that for the sake of the production and not costing the production money or, you know, having to pay people overtime because you're not respecting the fact that, you know, this shot is going to take an extra 30 minutes, like stuff like that.
Correct.
I think as a reminder to always make sure that like whatever you're shooting, like makes sense for the story that you're trying to tell. Like a lot of the time, there's a lot of movies or shows you'll watch and there's a lot of creative shots, like the camera, you know, Dana Dolly or, you know what I'm saying, Techno Crane or Steady, whatever, like you'll see stuff like that. You're like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. And it's cool, but like, is it adding to the story? I know a lot of like DPs say this too, but it's like, it's a real thing. Like, is it adding to the story or am I just doing it for like, you know, for it to be cool or for like bragging rights or for people to be able to like send the shot in their group chat like, yo, did you see what so-and-so did? You know what I'm saying? Like it's bigger than it's bigger than that. So I think for me, I run into that a lot when it comes to just time. Like I'm trying to obviously do better and make sure that like things can be planned out to the T. But in the production world, bro, like nothing happens exactly how you think. You know what I'm saying? Like even when you have a storyboard, like there's still times where things shift or things take longer than you expect, and you have to be someone that is able to pivot. I mean, I think that's a part of your job. You know what I'm saying? Like as a DP, like you have to figure out solutions. And I like to consider myself like solution oriented. So if something doesn't work, then I have to think of, you know, a plan B and have a plan C. And a lot of the time, like having that before the issue comes up. So it could be a lot because again, like being on set is a lot of pressure at times, you know, depending on who the client is, depending on like, you knowing how much they spent, you know, it's like a lot of that can like add pressure to the decisions that you're making, you know, on set. But ultimately, I think it's just understanding that, hey, I understand what the priority is. It will be nice to get this shot. You know what I'm saying? Like it will be nice for it to be lit a certain way. But unfortunately, you know, we're going to have to just throw up a quick light, you know what I'm saying? You know, whatever the case may be, just to get the shot like checked off, flag that joint, you know, put it through some diffusion. just so you
Mm-hmm.
can check it off and the client can see it on the monitor, knowing that, okay,
Right.
like we got the shot that we told them we were going to get,
Right.
although we didn't necessarily like light it or shoot it in a way that we wanted
Mm-hmm.
to. But, ultimately it's what the client wants. And that's what you got to understand. Like, you're serving someone, you can't be
Mm-hmm.
selfish. Like, someone, you're rendering a service, you know what I'm saying? So ultimately, like, there has to strike a balance between obviously making sure the client is happy or making sure yourself is happy. But if you have to choose between yourself and the client, when you're in a tight spot, then you got to like choose the client over yourself. At least that's my personal like opinion. Like, it's just choosing the client over yourself for the sake of the relationship.
No, for sure. You're 100%
Yeah.
right. Are you a coverage or no coverage type?
It depends. It honestly depends
Mhm.
on the story. Coverage is ideal, but I like to, and it also depends on like the director that I'm working with as well. But I think it
Mhm.
ultimately just depends on the time that we have. Then it's okay, let's just get it for the edit just to make sure like the editor has enough to work with. And if we're tight on time, then it's like, okay, how can I shoot this in a way where it may just have to be a one take on Steadicam and maybe the camera is bouncing back and forth between, the talent. And that can be an aesthetic too. That can be a vibe. And I love one take films or like music videos or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, I love one take scenes. So the plan Bs are not, I mean, that would be my plan A. You know what I'm saying? But again, it's just learning what's important. What does the director want? What can I do with the time that I have? And then like making your decision off of there.
What's the different mindset you have as a director and or slash as a cinematographer? Like, what are those two brains doing? So if you're like by
Um,
yourself doing branded content, like how do
mm,
you go? Like, what's your process? Or if you're like just just a cinematographer or
mm.
strictly a director, how does those brains work on set?
I feel like ultimately you can't like separate the two. You know what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
I think you do have to respect the position you're playing in that moment. So like, although like let's say I'm just DPing and someone else is directing, like if there's something I felt like would work better, or it's like, hey, maybe it's just not working out, like how the director is like trying to communicate what they want or whatever, then it's like I'll pull the director to the side, and especially
Mhm.
depending on the relationship I have with them. If you don't really have a good relationship or you're just not close, then you really gotta like play it by ear in terms of
Right.
like, okay, do I feel like I can give this person like a suggestion, and like it's my first time working with them, I don't really know. But if it's obviously someone you've worked with before, then it's just like, okay, cool. Like let me pull you to the side. Let me think like, okay, I think this could go better, or I think if we have them do it this way, like, what do you think? Just like collaboration is key. So I think for me, it's it's easier like when you're used to directing and DPing, because again, like because you have that experience, it's kind of like you kind of know it kind of like informs your decision as far as just like camera movement, or like, because as a director this is like the feeling that I'm trying to evoke. As a DP, okay, like let's have the camera like slowly push in, because again, there
Mhm.
are certain directors that are not technical, like
Yep.
they
Mhm.
just want to focus on the talent, and whoever they
Yep.
hire to DP is just like, yo, I trust you to like do your thing. And
Yep.
I've worked with some directors who are like that. So it's just like, okay, what emotion or what feeling, like what's the goal for like this scene in terms of just like how you want people to feel. And I think for me
Mhm.
it's just like, okay, cool, like if I was in this situation as a director, I would want this type of movement, or I would want this type of lighting. And obviously like as you're going through that, you're still like asking them like, hey, like what do you think? You're still like letting them know like what you plan on doing. Like, hey, I'm planning on like using this light or this temperature, or like no lights, to evoke whatever. Like, what do you think about this? Um, but I think ultimately, I think it helps me determine what tools and how the camera ultimately should move, because of like what the director, like what they're trying to say, or like the emotion they're trying to give off based off of just like the writing or the acting itself. But I don't think it's something that I could ever like turn off. And I think it's something that is beneficial. And even when I'm just directing and I'm working with a DP, it's also very helpful, because I would be someone that's considered like technical. Like I would be able to communicate
Right.
like, okay, I want it this way, I want it to be on this, whatever the case may be. But at the same time, still allowing the DP to um do their thing and offer, their own creative ideas as well. Because it never should be like a one-sided relationship. Like, yeah, I can be someone that's technical and know what I want, but I want I want you to feel like obviously you have a place in communicating, like, you know, suggesting a better way to do it, or suggesting like, hey, like, I actually disagree. Like, I feel like it should be done this way. I don't think disagreement is a curse word. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's something
Right.
that, you know, people should be like, oh, this person doesn't respect my authority. It's like, nah, I do, but I just don't necessarily agree that this is the right approach. Like, here's
Right.
my solution to like how I feel like this can be like lit better or shot better, or whatever the case may be, or the talent could do this. So it really just, it ultimately depends on who I'm working with, and you know, what the film is supposed to say, like what that scene is supposed to say, like, and not just shooting things for the sake of, oh, it looks good. Like, I'm trying to get a Vimeo staff pick,
Right.
or like, you
Right.
know, like it's
Yeah.
really easy to go down that rabbit hole
Yeah.
of like, you know, just doing things because it looks good. And sometimes you may do that. You know, sometimes certain things may not call for haze. You just want to throw haze in there.
Right.
Or,
Right.
you know what I'm
Right. Right.
saying? Like, oh, let's add
Raise it
atmosphere.
up.
Right. Let's raise it up. It's like, how does this, it just makes the shot look cool. I'm just like, all right, I
Right.
understand. So there are moments, I'm not going to act like I've never done that or I don't do it now.
For
There are
sure.
moments where it's just like, yeah, like it looks
Right.
good, you know, so let's rock with it. But ultimately, I think that shouldn't be like that shouldn't be at the front of your mind. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it can be behind, like the first thought, obviously, be the second thought, but the first thought should always be like, how's what I'm doing like serving the story? And then like, okay, like how can we make it look pretty? So
Yeah, man. That's dope. Also just to add on that as well, like just the beautiful images, I feel like it's a renaissance happening like in the DMV area, you know, like with you and
mm-hmm.
with Aaron and with like Othello and stuff like that. And it's just like
Mm-hmm.
I like to see like the pockets of like America that don't get enough love. And it's just like, nah, you
Yeah,
have like talented like creatives out there that's like really like grinding and putting in the work. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like behind the camera and like really doing like interesting things with like lens choices or like camera choices or just like anything at all.
yeah.
So on that note, like what's your favorite like camera lens choice? Like what do you like?
Mm,
You like a RE Lomo? You like a
mm,
RE Zeiss? Like
mm.
what are you?
Shout out to my boy Othello Aaron real quick. You know what I'm saying? Those the
Mm-hmm.
homies. Bro, I mean, I I have, so on my shelf right now, I have the Red Scarlet W, the Arya Mira, and the Sony
Mm-hmm.
FX9. And they all serve their own different purpose. You know what I'm saying? If I had to
Yep.
choose, obviously, I think I would choose like the Mira like 95% of the time, just because the
Mm-hmm.
ergonomics and also like the image. Um, but again, I tried not to, and I'm learning this too. Like, hey, choose the camera that's best for the job. Don't just choose the
Right.
camera based on like, oh, I just want to shoot on it because I just want to. But it's just like, yo, like, does this make sense for what you're shooting? Are you gonna do a lot of running, gunning? Like with the Red, like I know they have like different like built-in NDs and stuff that you can buy for it because it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have it doesn't come with the built-in NDs. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have. Sometimes I'm just like, if I already have two cameras that have built-in NDs, I'm gonna just go with those rather than like going with the Red that has you have to require changing out the matte box, changing out the ND filter. Like that could be a lot. If I'm just shooting an interview or depending on what I'm shooting, then I'm gonna go with the Red because obviously I can take
Mm-hmm.
my time and change out any filters I need to change. If I'm running and gunning and like the schedule for the day is very unpredictable, then I'm gonna go with the FX9 or the Amir. So it really just all depends. But as far as like lenses go, bro, like I would say Cook Paint Crows. I'm a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of vintage lenses. So the Cook Paint Crows. I love the Lomo Super Speeds.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the Canon FDs. They're really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I would say those are like
Super
my
nice.
top three. The Cook
Mm-hmm.
S4s, those are cool.
A
I
little bit
haven't had
soft.
a little bit soft, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously has like a lot of great character, and it really does give you that
Mm-hmm.
3D look that they promise.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I think for me right now, I'm like kind of like sticking with vintage. Um, because again, like the type of work that I want to create and the look that I want my work to have is it's like I want it to feel nostalgic. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want it to feel like super modern, super clinical, super sharp. And granted, there are things and products that call for that. But if it's always my choice, it would always be like something that I feel like is a representation of me, something that has character, something that obviously allows itself to express itself So for example, like the flare characteristics, you know what I'm saying? Like every lens flares differently, you know? So it's like if we want to go fake deep, it's like every lens could be considered a person. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it's only because every lens offers a different perspective. You know what I'm saying? It
And
offers a different look.
it also like looks differently as well, like in the color grading on the post process
Yeah,
too. So if you take
for
like a
sure.
Blackwing like D-Tune 7 with like a nice like
Mm-hmm.
circular like lens flare, of course it's gonna like
Mm-hmm.
look different depending on like who's color grading it versus like a Cook or like an anamorphic lens with like a red or anamorphic
Exactly.
lens with like a Ari or anamorphic lens even with like a Black Magic or like a smaller like you know what I'm saying camera or
Mm-hmm.
whatever like that. So now you're definitely
Exactly.
right though.
No, exactly. So that's why it's always important to know like what tool is best for the job because again, not every
Mm-hmm.
lens is going to work for every project.
Right.
But yeah, man, I just love that lenses, like although like the sensor on most of these cameras are obviously they're good, you know, like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these cameras like they're good. So it's really the lenses that allow your project to embody a certain look because of the characteristic of the lens itself, while still
Mm-hmm.
keeping like the characteristics of the sensor that you're using, which is why like I would always, if I could on every project, use the mirror if it, or I mean, if it makes sense. But because the
Mm-hmm.
mirror feels closer to film to me, then it's just like I'm gonna go with that because again of the nostalgic nature that camera like offers. And then after that, it just all depends on what the project calls for. But I would say that's my go-to. My go-to. I don't really have a go-to, but
Mm-hmm.
if I could choose, it would be the mirror. Like I said, 95% of the time. But it's just I'm always flexible with cameras. So
And what's your like post process like workflow? I don't want you to give up, you know, your LUTs or nothing like that. Cause this is it's very distinct. Unless you want to, you know what I'm saying, for everybody that's listening and watching, but like it's very like
mm-hmm,
distinct. Like it's like very it's a very like classic color
mm-hmm,
grading, but it also
mm-hmm,
just again like it's very character driven. Like you could the way you shoot like different black skins is just
mm-hmm,
very you had one piece you did on Vimeo. I'm like, you got like at least 8 to 10 different like shades of black skin. And they were
mm-hmm,
all color graded like nicely, like
Thank you.
amazing. And I'm like, oh,
Thank
okay,
you.
like that's this dude different. You know what I'm saying? I gotta step
Thank
my
you.
color grading up.
Nah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Nah, I really do appreciate that because, bro, like I spend a lot of time like studying like a lot of people's like work and like people that
Mm-hmm.
I look up to and stuff. But anytime someone mentions like my color, I always get surprised that people like consider it like nice or like, yo, you're really great at like coloring because I'm
Mm-hmm.
always looking at like colors company 3. I'm looking
Right.
at their color. I'm like, dang, like how they, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? How they begin
Right.
because I don't consider myself a colorist. You know what I'm saying? So that's
Right.
why like when people are like, yo, like some guy was like, yo, you should start tagging yourself as color when you're
That
posting.
part.
Because normally I wouldn't
Yeah.
like tag myself as a colorist. I just wouldn't add it. And someone like,
Yeah.
yo, like you should actually start adding yourself as a colorist so your stuff is actually like pretty solid. And I'm just like, damn, I never thought about that. I just thought it was just
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But as far as like my post process, bro, I think it depends. It depends. But for the most part, I do have a LUT. His
Mm-hmm.
name is I'm sure Joel. I forgot his last name. A lot of people use it. If you have a Sony, you know who I'm talking about.
Okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, I think his first name is Joel, but I use him as like a base LUT, and I
Mm-hmm.
always gravitate towards I think it's the RE neutral LUT. So whether I'm shooting on the FX9 RE neutral LUT, when I'm shooting on the actual Amira, I use the RE neutral LUT. But when I shoot on the red, the color signs on the red is just a little. You gotta kind of like put a little
Tweak
more
it a
emphasis on.
lot.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah, tweak it a lot.
that the 16-bit is cool and it's very
For sure.
helpful, but it just requires a lot. That's why another thing why I like the mirror so much is like you don't have to do as much to make
Nah.
the image, you know what I'm saying? Like look as good. So it just really all depends. But I would say I just throw on the base LUT, bro, and then I just kind of like tweak. I literally use color wheels and I color
Oh,
in
that's
Final
dope.
Cut Pro. I color in Final Cut
Oh,
Pro.
what?
Yeah, man. Look, so when I got into filmmaking, Final Cut Pro was the first software I learned on, and
It was it.
I never went back. I mean, I know how to edit in Premiere, and I've done my fair share of that when I worked at a 9 to 5 that worked on Premiere. And I just hated working in Premiere, bro. Like, it's just simple things that you find in Final Cut. It's just different in Premiere, bro. You know, and I think I like Premiere Final Cut, because Apple is like a very user-friendly company. Like, all their products, they want anyone to be able to pick it up and just know how to use it. They've always been like that.
Let's be real. Let's be real right now, bro. You can use so many emails to get the free versions. Like, let me put in my email right now. I get the free versions for what, a month?
Bro, I think it was like a month. It's crazy. So it's like, you keep creating these emails, you good. But eventually you gotta make the investment, you know, because it gets annoying after a while having to find like a new email. Right. But nah, bro. So I literally color in Final Cut. I do all my posts in Final Cut. I rarely do anything outside of that unless I'm like working on audio and I'm using like Adobe Audition or something like that. But where everything is done in Final Cut. And I always tell people, like, you got to do what's best for you. Like, obviously, I know like the industry has their way of working, and Premiere is good for collaboration, especially like if you're doing After Effects or InDesign or any other like Adobe product. Is great for that. But if you're not having to collab in that way, or even if like the VFX artist that you're using or whatever, if there are other ways to still work like within Final Cut, maybe they send you like a ProRes file, whatever, then I'm gonna do that. Like, if whatever I got to do to stay in Final Cut, bro, I'm gonna stay in Final Cut. But that's basically my process. It's really simple. I just literally throw on a base LUT just to get me started. And then like I just tweak. So I never have the LUT on 100%. Maybe I'll have the LUT on like maybe 50 or 60. And then I kind of like, you know, adjust my shadows, my midtones, highlights. I kind of adjust that based off like, again, what if the scene is like very like, if I shot it, like, let's say I shot it like very blue, then obviously I'm going to like emphasize that with color. If it's something that's very warm, I'm going to emphasize that with color. The great thing about, I will say, shooting on the red though, is like the raw capabilities and you being able to change your white balance and everything in post. So I would say that. And again, I think that's why it's important to choose your camera wisely, because you may be in a situation where you may have to change all that in post, because the nature of the shoot is just like, I don't want to say it's chaotic, but like the person you may be working with everywhere, they may be indecisive. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, okay, I know I have to shoot this in raw to give as much flexibility in post, versus just like, obviously this person knows what they want. They see it on the monitor. You know, they're not going to change their mind later. Then yeah, like you inform your decisions based off of that. But yeah, that's basically the process. It's nothing deep. It's just basic LUT to start off. And then I just tweak using my color wheels within Final Cut.
That's what's up, man. That's amazing. Last question. Give me something that your mentor used to tell you back in the day that stuck with you. Doten, tell me something that he used to tell you back in the day that stuck with you. That you still have to this day.
You must have listened to an old podcast or something, bro. I don't even know how you know about that one.
I don't listen to like sciencey podcasts and like Deacons.
That's crazy, right? That's actually wild. Shout out Dotun. I mean, that's my guy. But I remember him saying, "I know you heard I was expensive," and I was just like, "Yeah, like I did hear that," and he was like, "Good," and then like he just continued on with the conversation. But for some reason, it stuck with me because I think at the time I used to feel like, and this is like back when I'm like trying to figure out my rates, and this is just when I'm doing photography, like trying to figure out rates, like being nervous to like charge people a certain amount of money because you're afraid that they're going to say no, or you're afraid that, oh, the price is going to scare them away. It just kind of showed me in that moment to like know your value. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to always describe your value to like monetary things. But in the business that we're in, you know, that's just the case. It's like if they want your services, and obviously you know what you bring to the project, to the production or whatever you're doing, then it's just like it should come at a price that you feel comfortable with. And even if like the people around you may say, oh, you're too expensive or whatever the case may be, then that's fine. Let them say that. But ultimately, at least you know that there are going to be people who pay those prices because they value what you have to offer. You know, they value your education, they value your perspective, they value your voice. So if someone values that, they're gonna pay whatever they got to pay to make sure that you can bring what you offer to whatever they're trying to create. And that I don't know why it stuck with me. I mean, I kind of do, but like it's funny how like people can say very simple things in passing,
Mm-hmm.
and like I can just take it in as like a message on life. Like, dang, like
Mm-hmm.
this person, they probably, I don't even think he knows that it stuck with me. I really don't think he knows. I don't even know if he remembers that he said that, but
Right.
it's just something that kind of opened up my eyes. And even in hindsight now, it's just like, yeah, like that's real. You know, obviously he was a lot older, so he already like was able to adapt that mentality, like him growing into who he is as a creative. So, but me like still trying to get my foot at that time, like as a photographer, like of course this is like a revelation to me. And I'm just like, yo, like people out here complaining about, not, I don't want to say complaining, but it is complaining low key about like rates and how expensive something is.
Right.
It's just like when you want a designer, you know what I'm saying, or you want to go get a range, you know what I'm saying, you're not about
Yeah.
to go to the
Complain about the
dealership
price.
like, yo, like y'all selling this joint for 100 something. Like, yo, like this joint should be 40. They're gonna look at you
Nah.
like, yeah, you might go to the Toyota dealership, or you might want to
Right.
go to the Honda dealership.
Right.
We're just
Used
not for
car.
you. Used
Right.
car, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like it's just like we're just not for you, and we're not gonna drop our rates or like how much this thing is, the value of this thing because of you. You know what I'm saying? It's either like you be patient, come up with the money, save it, buy that range you want, or if you're in
Mm-hmm.
a tough situation and you just need something, then yeah, go to the Toyota dealership, Honda. It's like it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's just important to know where you are as a customer when you're trying to purchase something or when you're trying to like have someone run their service. But yeah, it stuck with me and I still apply to this day, you know, like not being afraid to, if someone's asking you a rate, just tell them like, this is my rate. You know what I'm saying? And I know a lot of us who are, you know, DPs, directors, or just in this industry in general, like having a conversation about money can be very uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? It can be very uncomfortable, but I think it's just mastering the art of negotiating. Because that happens too. You know, sometimes you may say a number and they may talk you down a few $100s. Then at that point, it's just like, do you still take it? Do you not take it? It's completely up to you. But at least you know that, you know, you have the option to either say yes or no. So,
Yeah, man, I appreciate this, man. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
of
This
course, it was a
podcast is
pleasure.
about like future legends like yourself, you know what I'm saying? And
I appreciate that, man.
making sure people get on game early before,
For
you know, you
sure.
hop on the stages and winning Oscars, winning awards and
I
stuff like that,
appreciate
to
that.
make sure that people know that they're supposed to tap in and support people like you, or, you know, Othello or Aaron Tucker, or, you know, people that need assistance in this
For
filmmaking
sure.
community, because it's not easy. So yeah,
It's
man, I
not
appreciate
easy.
you.
Of course.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Drop all
My
your
pleasure.
socials. Make sure you know, let
Oh, for
everybody know where they
sure.
can find you at, man, and your
For
website
sure.
as well with you and your wife.
Oh, sure. So you can find our production company at Crew Films. That's CRUEFILMNS .co. So crewfilms.co. My personal Instagram is Samson Binutu. So SAMSON BINUTU. I'm sure he's gonna put all the information in the show notes, so you don't gotta worry about spelling. And then my personal website is samsonbinutu.co. And that's pretty much it. Just be on the lookout for some things that will be dropping. I got a lot of original shorts that we're coming out with this summer. So yeah, just be on the lookout. Like we're definitely this summer creating a lot of original work coming from our production company. So super excited to be able to share that with you all. And just if you're a fan, you're a fan. I appreciate you guys, you know, especially being Black in this industry. It's always just trying to provide opportunities for as many people of color that we can. It's always our honor to be able to do that. But yeah, man, just follow us on the journey and don't be afraid to say hi. We won't bite, I promise.
Yes, sir. Appreciate this, man. Thank you.
Of course, man. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.